A party in freefall, speeding towards a leadership reckoning.
This is a true crisis and something needs to change, and I think every Liberal member and senator needs to consider these matters very quickly, this week preferably. I'm not going to make any further comments other than what I've said. I think this is a very difficult time for the Liberal Party. Every Liberal member and senator has a responsibility to act in the national interest.
At some point something has to change. Now I don't know what that is, but it has to happen soon because we're running out of time.
Liberals desperate for change were out in force today, agitating for a new leader after another disastrous Newspoll hit the presses.
The party room wants to support a strong leader, and we have wanted to support a strong leader from day one. This cannot be blamed on anyone else. It has to come back to the leadership that we are facing today.
Sussan Ley is not listening to her critics and appears to be bunkering down.
Polls are a point in time and they do reflect the fact that people are frustrated, people are angry, they want us to be a strong opposition.
But the rumblings are getting hard to ignore. Backbenchers are doing the maths about what the polling collapse means for their own futures. If ever there was an argument for change, surely the worst slump in apparent support since World War II should be enough, they say.
My message to my leaders, and I mean Liberal and National Party today, is if you have a rabbit in your hat, it is time to reach down for that bunny.
I saw Senator Hume say this morning, Mr Speaker, that they had to reach for the rabbit, in her words. Well, here he is over there, Mr Speaker.
Angus Taylor, conspicuous in the chamber today with a fresh haircut, is the key to this ongoing crisis. He's been lurking in the shadows for months, reluctant to be accused of tearing down a female leader.
Were she to be deposed, I can almost guarantee you there would be people out there saying, oh, you know, you guys have just politically assassinated the first female leader of the Liberal Party.
You have a problem with women voters. Your brand is absolutely shot among women. Would it help you with women to depose a moderate female leader for a Conservative man?
If we were getting rid of a female leader because she was a woman, I reckon that would do some damage to our standing with half the population of our country. We've got 2 female leaders in the Senate for the Liberal Party. These things seem to matter naught when it comes to that particular argument.
Angus Taylor is unmistakably approaching the point of no return, where he'll need to either put up his claim to the job and convince doubting moderates that he could do better than Ley, or park it. In practice, that means he'd soon need to step down from the shadow ministry and make his argument in public.
I'm not sure whether it was your office that I saw 3 Angus Taylor supporters emerging from, just as we returned from the lunch break, Senator Henderson. They were certainly coming from the Senate side of the building.
Chair,
we were unable to reach an agreement with the coalition
Minister,
version
you
2.
are out of order.
I'd be lying to you if I didn't say there were conversations going on in this place around matters leadership. They always do when the polls look the way they do today. But that is a bit different to someone saying, you know what, yes, I'm going to challenge, and it's on. We're not there yet.
Taylor's supporters are privately briefing that a challenge to Ley is inevitable. The only question is when. What is certain, they say, is that a change is needed to reverse the party's collapse.
There will not be a single member of the House of Representatives from Victoria after the next election from the Liberal Party if these polls continue. There will not be a single member of the House of Representatives from New South Wales from the Liberal Party if these polls continue.
As a marginal seat member, when I won that seat from Labor, I needed to win with a primary vote of 46%. We are sitting at 18%. We are no longer a viable opposition. We have so much hard work to do, and we've got to do that quickly because I think we are losing the faith of the Australian people. We can turn it around.
The leader of the opposition.
Ley is determined to fight and sent a pointed message to Liberals openly prosecuting the case for her downfall.
In any political party, there's different views and characterisations about direction, and the proper place to have that discussion is inside the party room. In public, we must present a credible alternative.
The opposition leader is also talking up the fact she secured a détente with the Nationals over the weekend.
So, David, we've got our first joint party room meeting here in this room on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to it.
Echoed by David Littleproud.
And that's the maturity and leadership that I thank Sussan for, that we've been able to say, we've got to find a better way forward. We put in these processes.
Today was all about Angus Taylor's allies and proxies agitating for change. At some point, Taylor himself will have to explain why he would do better in the most thankless job in Australian politics.
I'm very, very upset about where things are. We are all very, very sad, but things do have to change. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Liberal frontbencher Dan Tehan joins me now. Dan Tehan, welcome.
Sarah, always a pleasure to be with you and your listeners.
Is Sussan Ley's leadership terminal?
No, look, what we've achieved over the weekend is reunification of the Liberal Party and the National Party, and we know that we're better and we're going to present a better alternative when it comes to policies, but also be able to take it up to the Albanese Labor government when we're united. And that was a significant achievement, and I think now we're going to be in a very strong position to continue to build on that.
Has anyone canvassed you for your vote?
No, they haven't. No, look, I had a lot of conversations over the last fortnight and especially over the last 3 or 4 days, and all those were about how we could get the coalition together, and I was absolutely delighted to see what David and Sussan were able to do on Sunday. And the most important thing about that also was the majority of the National Party room and the majority of the Liberal Party room wanted that to occur, and the fact that we've been able to do that, I think, is highly significant, and that's all the calls that I've been making or people who have rung me, that's what they've been discussing. A, how we can get it back together, now how we can build on that.
Clearly there's a lot of other kinds of conversations taking place within the party. That's obvious from your colleagues who spoke in that package. We also got those catastrophic Newspoll figures. Do you accept that those figures have confirmed to some in your party that there is no way back for Sussan Ley?
Well, I think what they've confirmed is that we have to focus on the two most important things any opposition has to focus on. And the first of those is we have to focus on holding the government to account. 13 interest rate rises, and we're about to see, according to experts, potentially another 2, which is putting enormous pressure on households with cost of living. And we've got to make sure that the government learns how to tighten its belt and addresses inflation. The second thing we've got to be able to do is to offer alternatives. And we've got to make sure that come the next election that we're seen as a viable alternative government. And we have to do that work. And that's hard work. That's about building on the energy policy that we announced before the end of the year. It's about immigration, making sure we get at and announce that policy, tax and economy, those things. That's what we've got to do. And that's hard work. And there's a responsibility on all of us to do that.
Let me just talk to you about another figure. You just said 13 interest rate rises, but there plus 2 more to come, you said. Neatly, there was another number 15, which was the Newspoll figure for the Liberal Party, 1515. What went through your head, honestly, when you saw that number?
I've got to roll my sleeves up and get to work, and got to make sure that I'm out there, first of all, in my electorate, presenting the case as to why they did the right thing in voting me back in at the last election, and then to do the work to make sure that I can present myself as a candidate again at the next election. Well, so making sure that I'm working in my electorate. And then the 2 second things which I've touched on, which are critically important for any opposition. A, holding the government to account. You have to do that, especially, as I've said, 13 interest rate rises, potentially 2 more to come, and you've got to do that alternative policy work. Well, let's
talk to you about your seat, because you saw Jane Hume there. The warning that she has given today is that if this continues in the present form, there will be no members from Victoria, from New South Wales, and that, of course, would include you. You can read an electoral map as well as Jane Hume, probably better, given where you sit in the House. Is she right?
No, she's not right, because, polls come and go at this time of year. And the most important thing is for us to realise that the next election will, in all probability, be in 2 years' time. So we've got to get on, roll the sleeves up and do the work now. There were plenty of polls which predicted my demise at the last election. There was one which had me losing, I think it was 44-56. Now, that proved to be drastically wrong. So the most important thing is for us to focus on the next 2 years of doing the work that's necessary, and then the polls will look after themselves, and especially the most important poll, which has come election day. And if you look at political history, and this is critically important, when it comes to the pointy end, the Australian people have, in all our political history since the Second World, looked at the Labor Party or looked at the coalition as the parties which can form government. And that's always been the case. And if we can continue to do the work, this time in opposition, I think we will present ourselves as the only credible parties that can offer that alternative to the Australian people.
Let me ask you this question. If Sussan Ley, the Liberal Party's first female leader, was overthrown by a Conservative man, would that, in your view, present a political gift to the Teals?
Look, I'm asked a lot of ifs when it comes to doing interviews with the media, Sarah, and if I answered all of them, I'd be off, predicting this or saying this isn't going to happen. What I always want to focus on is the here and now and the reality that we're facing. And that is all about hard work and doing those two things that I've spoken to correctly. I'll let you and others do the speculation with regards to what may or may not happen and what the consequences or what may happen might be. For me, it's about building on the energy policy that we announced before Christmas, and it's about making sure that we're doing the work in other areas to present serious alternative policies to the Australian people.
One argument that's being made is that the party needs to take a turn to the right to counter the extraordinary surge from One Nation. What would be the electoral consequences, in your view, of such a move?
Well, look, we get a lot of advice about left and right, and we should be going north, south, east and west.
What do you think?
Well, what I think is we've just got to do the hard work. We know the areas that we need to address when it comes to policy, because they're the areas the government's failing at. They're failing when it comes to energy. Electricity prices have been up 40% since this government came to office. They're failing when it comes to housing. They're not going to meet any of their housing targets. They're failing when it comes to addressing inflation, 13 interest rate rises and counting. They're failing when it comes to national security. We are terribly, terribly concerned about how they're trying to attempt to bed down AUKUS. All these areas are what we need to be focusing on and presenting credible policy alternatives. And if we do that, I can tell you we will be competitive at the next election.
So what do you say to your colleagues? Senator Jane Hume, it's taken her a long time to say that this is an existential crisis. She's a serious person. She's making a very serious claim about the condition of the party. What is your message to Jane Hume and also to Sarah Henderson?
Well, my message, like it is to all colleagues, is what it requires is us to do the hard work. There's no easy solutions to the problems that we're currently facing. At the last election in May 2025, the Australian people sent us a very clear message. It diminished our numbers in the House and in the Senate.
And yet you're in an even worse position now. So what you're doing isn't working. Do you agree?
Well, what we're doing is we're beginning to do the work that's required, but we've got to continue to do it, and I think we've got to now continue to do it at speed. Now, we've had the distraction of the Liberal Party and the National Party splitting only for a brief period of time. A lot of work and a lot of effort went into bringing them back together, and that was incredibly important, because if we hadn't been able to do that, then our electoral consequences could have been dire. But we've done that hard work. We've got everyone back together. I thought the question time in the House today went incredibly well. It showed that we're back and we're united. Now what we've got to do is do that hard work.
I just have to stop you there. It did not show that you are united. Just a brief final question, yes or no. If Angus Taylor offered you a position on the front bench, would you take it?
Look, I'm not once again going to go into ifs and buts and everything, but I don't know how you can say that it didn't look united in question time today. If you saw the seamless way it worked, how we asked questions, very specific questions of Chris Bowen on energy, which he could not reply, how he's going to bring electricity prices down, plus the Treasurer on whether he'll tighten his belt. I thought it was very well coordinated, and I thought we held them to account quite well.
Dan Tehan, valiant. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, Sarah.